Story of the World, Volume 2, Chapter 31, Part 2. Vespucci and Magellan. We often talk about Christopher Columbus and his discovery of America. But although Columbus laid the way for later Spanish explorers to come to the Americas, he wasn't the first adventurer to land in America. The Viking Leif Erikson landed in North America long before Columbus was born. And Columbus wasn't the first to recognize America as a new continent. He continued to think that he had discovered a new route to the east. The first explorer to realize that this mysterious shoreline was a brand new land was an Italian merchant named Amerigo Vespucci. In 1492, when Columbus sailed his 3 ships from Spain, Amerigo Vespucci was in Spain. He was doing business for his employer, an Italian nobleman. But although Amerigo was a good businessman, he had always wanted to sail to India. He watched with envy as Columbus departed on his great adventure. When Columbus returned with news that he had reached land by sailing west, Ferdinand and Isabella agreed to pay for more expeditions. Amerigo Vespucci was anxious to apply. He arranged to take 3 ships of his own out into the Atlantic. 7 years after Columbus's first voyage, Amerigo Vespucci set sail himself. Over the next 10 years, Amerigo made several different journeys to the coast of the Americas. He sailed down South America, almost all the way to the tip of the continent. He sailed up to North America and saw the rivers that flowed into the sea. The more Amerigo saw of this land, the more sure he was that Columbus was wrong. This wasn't India or Asia. This was something else completely. He wrote a letter to his Italian employer saying, "I am sure that we have found a new land. The coastline and the number of rivers make me certain of it." So although Columbus discovered America, Amerigo Vespucci was the first to realize that he had found a new continent. And since Amerigo wrote and published many accounts of his travels, more people read about his voyages than about the journeys of Columbus. When a famous geographer made the first maps of the new lands, he decided to name this new part of the world America, after Amerigo Vespucci. Others suggested that it would be fair to call it Columbia, but the name America stuck. Columbus was the first European to land in America, and Amerigo Vespucci was the first to realize that America was a new continent. But another explorer, Ferdinand Magellan, was the first to actually carry out Columbus's original plan and get to India by sailing west. Magellan was a Portuguese sailor who set out for the Americas after Columbus and Amerigo Vespucci had both returned. Magellan knew that Vasco da Gama, who had managed to sail around Africa and get to India by going east, had taken a whole year on his voyage. He thought that it would be much quicker to sail west to the Americas, turn south, and go down around South America and then sail on to India. Of course, Magellan didn't really think he would have to go all the way to the southern tip of South America. He was sure that a river was bound to cut all the way across South America. All he had to do was sail down the coast, find that river, and sail into it. In 1519, Magellan set off. He spent weeks sailing down the coast of South America. Every time he found a river, he would turn and sail into it, hoping that it would lead him all the way across South America. But each river only led him to a dead end. When Magellan was almost all the way to the southern end of the South America, he found a river that took him all the way across to the other side of the continent. But the journey through this river was a stormy one. The water was so rough that rowboats had to pull his ship along. Gales howled along the narrow passageway. It took more than a month for Magellan to sail down this river. Finally, he came out into the ocean on the other side. The water was so smooth and still after the choppy water of the passage that he named the ocean the Pacific, which means calm. Today we call the river that cuts through the southern tip of South America the Straits of Magellan. "Let's go home," Magellan's sailors begged him. "We found the way through." But Magellan refused. He was sure that India must be close by. But it wasn't. Magellan and his sailors pushed on for more than 3 months with nothing but water in sight. They ran out of food. The sailors grew so hungry that they ate sawdust. They were almost out of water. Finally, they sighted land. The ships anchored, and Magellan's men got busy loading up fresh water and food. But as he looked around him, Magellan realized that he still had not reached India. He was on a group of small islands far off the coast of China. Today we call these islands the Marianas. He ordered his sailors to board the ship and sail on. In a few days, he sighted another group of islands ahead of him. Now was he approaching India? No. These islands were the Philippines, south of China. Would Magellan ever reach India? He never did. In the Philippines, gathering water and food for yet another try at India, Magellan agreed to help a local warrior chief fight a battle with another tribe. In this battle, Magellan was killed, but his lieutenant continued the voyage without him. Magellan had begun with 5 ships and 280 men. Now there was only 1 ship left, with 35 men aboard. But Magellan's lieutenant sailed this last ship west towards home. He went south of India, around the tip of Africa, back up the African coast, and finally back to Europe. Magellan had died before reaching India, but his ship was the first one to sail all the way around the whole world.